water with lemon. No, I have water with lemon. I also have a tea, nice little tea over here for my throat. And then I also have some coquito. But I did not make my drink that I proposed this evening. I switched it up, So I have like a little tiny glass of coquito as well. But my drink that I proposed, of course, is my all-time favorite, which is Tito's Neat. That's it. With a little lime if you want some lime in it, but just sip on that. You should be good to go for a while. I'll go all night with it. I don't recommend it, but I take it all the way to the top. That's what I do. I'm an extremist by nature.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
What about you, Ayanah? What are you drinking?
I as well am having 3 beverages.
Okay.
I'm having the Whole Foods sparkling water. It's Italian, I believe. And then I'm having here a hibiscus drink, which is also very hydrating. And then the Ardbeg scotch. Yeah, so, we're just doing a few different things. It's not what I mentioned I would be having, but I had this special and I thought, why not? Let's just go all the way.
Might as well. Shannon, what are you sipping away?
Yeah, it's interesting. We're all in like a 3-drink situation because I also have 3 drinks in front of me. This bottle of water. We had Canadian cuisine tonight at the inn, so I've got my Labatt's Blue left over from Canadian cuisine. We had poutine. And then the fancier thing is that I have this mead that I bought right when I was leaving New York for the last time when I went to go pack up my place. And it's pretty interesting. It's like New York mead made from chrysanthemum and chamomile.
Ooh.
Yeah, and wildflower honey.
Very nice.
Glass that our glass tech Lucy Gillis makes with these.
Ooh,
look at that!
I love that glass.
Right, and your finger can fit
right on the
glass. See, divine design. Love it.
To give it the legendary clap.
Yeah.
Yes,
good. Pretty good. So I'm glad that we're all 3-fisting it.
Yeah.
We heard a little bit of your soundtrack at the beginning, but I just like to hear what people are listening to in their studio right now, or what they maybe got them through quarantine, or and in general, I think music plays a really important part in artists' lives. It surrounds and inspires a lot of the work that they do, and I know it impacts both of you too. So what are we listening to? Why that playlist?
Yeah.
And on rotation.
Yeah, Ayanah, you start that. Kick that off.
Yeah. I mean, I think Krista and I are both music lovers. I think we vibe off of that and just in our lives in general. And so that spills over in our shared space. When we're teaching, I think music also kind of plays a role. So it was easy to kind of pull from the things that we sometimes play in the studio. And that we just kind of get a vibe going. So I would say it's like a nice combination of interests. I believe I had a little Tyler, the Creator, little reference to blooming flowers, as well as a little Solange. Saw things I imagined, just a nice range that in a way reflect kind of the vibe and the material, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Felt like a warm summer night there at the beginning.
Definitely.
Little Georgia and Muldrow to kick us off.
Yeah, little roses.
Yeah, I love that. I'm sorry, Krista, you were about to say something.
No, finish what you gonna say.
I was just gonna say I love that track because she's saying, "Don't pick the roses, let them live," and then she has this beautiful paper that she wants to draw the roses on. So I really like that vibe.
It's a classic.
Yeah.
What I threw in there? I threw in the Al Green. Take Me to the River. I threw in, what else I throw in?
Starfish and Coffee.
Wonder. Yeah, Starfish and Coffee by Prince. Asked by Stevie Wonder. And then I threw in a wild card. I threw in some Neil Young too.
Yeah.
Down by the river.
Yeah.
I think
I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say I read an interview with Krista where she was currently listening to Steely Dan, so I feel like I expect
That's
that.
nonstop since like, I don't know, the 80s.
I
It
think
never stops.
Molly, you can drop the link to the playlist in the chat too, because it's a public Spotify playlist, right? So we can
That's
share.
right. Yes,
Yeah.
right.
What about you,
Everybody-
Shannon? What are you playing, Shannon?
Oh boy, what am I playing lately? Pretty. The last record I bought is. I'm feeling like this is a really abstract thing. Hold on.
She's got to grab it.
Yeah.
Just go and tell.
And saying record, I actually want it to be vinyl.
It is.
Yes.
So the last kind of bunch of records I got in the mail. I really got deeply into this record called Sea Stones by Ned Logan. And it's one of these kind of strange projects that happened in the mid 70s, and it's an epic bunch of kind of analog synth kind of recordings that this Ned Logan did that was something like 87 songs long. Anyways, Imprec Records has selected 18 of the 87 to put on this one piece of vinyl. But it's pretty incredible. It's like a really great, it's called Sea Stones, but it's a really great kind of, I don't know, just really sculptural, like sounding music. And there's members from the Grateful Dead on this album too, which is just sort of like a bit of a side surprise. So that's what I've been listening to.
Lovely.
Yeah. And yes, on vinyl.
Sweet. I like that. We gotta keep that alive. We gotta keep that going.
Yeah, that fidelity is nothing like it in the world.
As you both know from teaching here, there's a lot of music lovers and a lot of DJs on this campus.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. We always try to do a little radio show too with Matt. Every single time we come up there or something that's music related. You know what I mean? It's a part of the culture.
I remember the first time the last time I taught at Oxbow was in 2018, and that was coincided with maybe the second time you taught Black in the Woods. And I remember you did the radio show during that session.
We did.
As I said to Ayanah before you got here, that I also remember that she had a cold. She wasn't feeling well. And I made friends with her by offering her some elderberry.
Yes.
Wow. That's so sweet. So good speaking.
Yeah. That's how memories are made.
That's one thing about all the mask wearing. My tendency to get a cold at a residency has lessened significantly. Like I didn't get a cold this time.
Wow.
The mask.
Yeah, there's more to the mask than just protecting us from a pandemic, because I also have not gotten sick at all this year from anything that would be communicable, and that seemed like a pretty good argument to wear one all winter long.
Absolutely.
Or around, in the classroom.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me a little bit about how the two of you got together to teach this class. I mean, I know you've been friends and you're, admire and are inspired by each other's work. What came first? Where were you in your relationship when you decided to get together to conceive of Black in the Woods?
Yeah, we started off teaching cut, copy, paste, which, we co-taught. That was the first time that we co-taught at Oxbow. And while we were teaching cut, copy, paste, which was also a really fun course, really wonderful course, great students there, we were joking around and talking about being Black in the Woods and how that, the whole sensation of being in the woods, it's a particular kind of experience in being Black, it's mixy, it's real mixy. So, it started off as like a little joke that we would say back and forth to each other as we were walking around on the grounds. And I don't know, something just clicked. It was like a light bulb went off, I think, over both of our heads. You know what I mean? In the midst of this joke. And we were kind of like, hold up. There's something to this. Like, there's like, we're joking, but there's something really fertile about this idea. There's something really generative about this idea. And, you know, I think it also hit on both of our, you know, just different parts of both of our interests. You know what I mean? I think that we're both very interested in, like, you know, Black production, of course, Black art, Black music, film. You know, I think that it just hit on all cylinders, you know, and this is the historical, you know, the historical breadth of it as well. It just seemed like a fantastic opportunity to turn it into a project that not only could be taught, but also, you know, an archival kind of practice that we could engage in and really sink our teeth into for an extended period of time. It just seemed like a really powerful thesis, I think. So that's, you know, I think that's what kicked it off. Is that pretty much it from your perspective, Ayanah? Like,
yeah, for sure. I mean, the humor element, then the kind of nerdy element of kind of playfully thinking through a curriculum as an extension of the joke, you know, oh, here's a text we could pull, oh, here's a film we could show. And I think we might have been on the little pier while we were chatting through it. And so it was just a really lovely, like a very joyous kind of experience of imagining what something would look like. When you're asked kind of what your dream course would be, it felt like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think one of the things that I think we get excited about at Oxbow is not something that maybe Oxbow led, but really is something that emerges from the people who teach here, is that the campus becomes a place where artists experiment in the kind of curriculum they can write or the kind of classes or experiences that they can create. And that, you know, one of the things that when I was a teacher here, like before I was in this role, that I enjoyed about teaching here is it felt like it was a true extension of one's like personal creative research, you know, practice, creative, playful practice could actually happen here in a way that is a little awkward in the traditional classroom. I think maybe because everybody's sort of showing up with a kind of, I don't know, like an open-heartedness towards the experiment. Is that how it feels to you when you get together and teach, that this is still like an active extension of who you are as artists and not like the same constraint of the classroom?
absolutely. I think especially with this class, though. You know what I mean? I just feel like I know I feel very connected to this material, and I feel very connected to the processes that our students very courageously take on, you know, through the materiality. So I definitely think so. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, just to be real, you know, there are times in which I'm often working in spaces in which I feel super underrepresented and hyper on display, you know? So, and being able to teach with a friend, you know, being able to teach with someone I really care about,
Yeah.
is also a way of me creating a certain kind of vibe in that site, you know,
Yeah.
within that site. And so, you know, who better than Krista Franklin? But I think that, you know, has been my own kind of my guilty pleasure is to kind of imagine a site in which I can feel, you know, feel at home in effect, right?
Yes.
And then the beauty of a site can also be a space where you can kind of be really imaginative, right? Because of that comfort. So I think that was really key with the first course, copy paste. You know, we're just vibing and pulling from, you know, our respective fields. And what was really lovely is to then kind of be in a space of making and then to think in a site specific way. You know, we were really inspired by Oxbow.
Yeah.
And for me, thinking about some of the the language that is used to describe Black folks, in terms of the urban, we want to think about that, before the Great Migration, it was within a rural context, right? And so I just thought it was a really rich opportunity for us to kind of navigate some of those histories, like through this lens.
Mm-hmm.
And to be expansive about it too, right? Because because my particular interests lean towards the darker end of things always. in all areas, So like when I think about the woods, naturally my imagination immediately goes toward the dark, towards horror and grotesque, right? But I feel like it gave us an opportunity, it gave me in particular an opportunity to think much more broadly about that and to include some of those things I think that Ayanah just said, like the history of the agricultural connection, right, that Black folks I think came here with, there's just so much I think that has to be mined with it. And with me, I was only tapping the surface. So being able to be in play with Ayanah on that site, on Oxbow's site, really expanded my own awarenesses and made me much more open.
Yeah.
Thinking about the ways that representation connects in this way, this particular kind of way.
I mean, I think one of the things that I find so compelling about the class is like, before I came to work at Oxbow in this capacity, I mean, just as a another person in the field and within your community, was that not to say that there are not other classes that can work this way, but that it really felt like an artwork that was unfolding. It was a research and an artwork, or an artwork research practice, or however you want to kind of, put those words together, but it felt like an artwork that was unfolding, a time-based artwork that was unfolding continuously on the campus every time you embarked on the project. And I've just really just like found that really, really a super compelling thing. And both as a way to teach, but really like also this way of thinking and doing research sort of in this deeply embodied way, like kind of all the way down, all the way through, and that it and then of course that it extends to and is perhaps collaborative with the students who engage with you in that project.
Yeah, I really love that language, Shannon. I think we both have approached this material with investment and curiosity and an invitation for students to think through these ideas with us. The way that we unpack text, the way that we approach thinking about theory and thinking about literature and poetry. I mean, it does feel like a little art baby, it definitely has that quality, more so than, us as scholars approaching this material. I think we're able to dream up things in maybe a different way because of the angle of which we approach the material.
Yeah, and be students again too, right? Be students with them, like relearning and unlearning, just in that constant process of curiosity and expansion.
Maybe I will invite you to share your beautiful presentation on that note, which includes student work. Maybe some of those folks are here tonight.
I know. Hey, people.
Hey.
We got some peoples in here. We really do. We have some fantastic students in this Zoom room. So thank y'all for coming tonight.
Let me see how to do this here. Presentation, outline, not outline. All of a sudden, I don't know how to do a slideshow.
Oh, there you go.
Damn. Yeah. So this time around, we kind of in our intro talk, or our kind of framework presentation with the students, we started with this image. Because one of the things we've been really excited about is, as Krista said, to be really expansive with the ways that Blackness is defined in the class. And for us, it's really a way to make the material as inclusive as possible, but also to give students to think about their entry point into the material. So we begin with this incredible image from a recent project of Daoud Bey's. And for us, using various contemporary artists has been an awesome way to kind of illustrate our thinking. So, and Krista, yeah, anytime you want to talk over me.
I'll jump in. You know me. You know me. I love the double dutch. Let's go.
So this presentation is really some highlights from the class. We've taught it a few times, and we typically begin with building language with the students. We map out Blackness and we map out the woods. And it's been a really wonderful way to get them involved in kind of building the language of the class, and for us to be in this kind of gathering, kind of building this course archive that students can reference throughout the week. I mean, it's a short ride, but we try to make it as rich as possible through these kinds of exercises.
Yes, and again, it really just it ups the stakes too, I think, in a way, right? Because it's like they are immediately tasked with, engaging their own historical imagination regarding what these terms may mean to them personally, as well as in a larger kind of, political landscape too, right? So yeah, I love that.
And I think what's really wonderful as well is that it immediately kind of levels all of our kind of positions as we begin, as opposed to us saying, here are the tools that we're gonna, here's all the language we're gonna explore, here are all the histories. It's like, okay, right away, how are you all gonna add to this? How are you gonna lead as much as we're gonna lead? Mm-hmm. The other things that are in this shot are texts. We sometimes have an exercise where we invite students to bring books that in some way engage ideas of Blackness, books that relate to the woods. And so that has ranged from cookbooks to different kinds of manuals, to literature. It's really ranged. And then Mac was kind enough to contribute some vinyl. So some of the vinyl in this shot is from Oxbow.
Yes, Mac's collection.
Yes.
Nice. We need to get one of your playlists onto the Oxbow map, onto the Oxbow membership map.
Oh yeah.
Molly will reach out about that, but we've been putting, because there's so much love for music here on this digital map we've been building at the campus. We've been putting playlists in different locations from people involved with Oxbow who are great music lovers. So.
Oh, that's super smart.
Yeah, we're gonna pop yours into the print studio or into the woods, whichever you prefer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Here's some of the ways in which, again, we kind of illustrate these ideas. And for us, again, to make it as kind of broad as possible is a great way for students to feel like they can kind of place themselves, no matter what tools they're using, within this kind of conversation. And our class is situated in the print shop, but we try to be really, we want to embrace all kinds of making. And so that's another thing that we are trying to communicate through the examples that we show them. So this is a range from, popular media to various artists to kind of historical texts. And the themes that have come up for us connect to these various images. And throughout the presentation, you'll see how we've applied that and how students have kind of explored the themes in the class. Okay. Yeah, these are some of the texts that we've referenced. This time around, we really focused on Black nature in a way that maybe we hadn't in the past. that I think in our short time frame, it felt really good to kind of be really focused and have students kind of respond to a couple of poems. But we've also referenced these other texts. It's interesting to think about Blackness in relation to a deep dive in constructions of whiteness, and so that's been this other way that we've introduced a kind of critical language around Blackness as a kind of concept. Um, and then our demonic grounds text has been this really kind of brilliant way to think about Black geographies and to think about the body and climate. So we've referred to them in multiple capacities, but this year at Oxbow was primarily the Black nature text that really kind of laid the groundwork for the work that the students made. These are a couple of images of some of the exercises that we've done. In a pre-COVID time, this was a pretty nice way of having the students kind of listen and add to a kind of soundscape, if you will. So as I recall, they all wrote and then read what they wrote through this. What is that thing called? It's not a megaphone.
The bullhorn.
Thank you. So they each moved this, they each passed the bullhorn around and just kind of hearing our voices within the space and our pacing and a kind of deep listening, but also sharing within the environment as a way to mix up kind of being in the classroom and being out on location together, which is something that's really special about the campus.
Yeah, you're
thinking too about the woods as the audience too. I think that's an interesting component about that particular piece. You know.
Absolutely, that's something that again in some of the works, some of the poetic works, we've been able to be kind of decentering ourselves in our thinking, and then encouraging students to not only pull away, but think about, you know, their relationship to nature in this way that doesn't center them. And so thinking about nature as audience is, I think, a really great way to frame that. Other shots from us just kicking it in class and having discussions, and then this Charles Gaines piece as another way of you know, how do we conceptualize our relationship to nature? How do we add to? What are the kinds of systems that could be used as a form of investigation, as a form of focus and concentration? And so, yeah, I think this is kind of I don't know, I just really love Charles Gaines anyway. But I do get really excited about thinking about the ways that these artist examples can do a lot of the framing and the teaching, even beyond, you know, what we're kind of voicing to them. And so I really enjoy that process. You know, there's a kind of curatorial process of us gathering images. You know, sometimes Krista and I will kind of text images back and forth, things we come across that feel not like work, but just kind of again a kind of joyous exchange of images and ideas.
Yeah.
So that's why I juxtaposed that one. Krista, you are mid word in this image. I don't remember what was happening though.
Oh, I don't either. I probably was waxing poetic about that show that I was loving so much at the time. You know, that little still from Atlanta. I was probably waxing poetic.
Yeah, because of some of the COVID stuff, we didn't kind of gather in this the typical screening area this time
Yeah.
around. But we have screened in the past media like this, and yeah, folks haven't seen this episode, get in it. This episode of Atlanta is pretty rich. Um, and I think again, just another great way of framing this kind of mental space, this kind of um, trickster character, and this kind of space of psychosis that plays out in this episode in a really compelling way.
And the notions too of like in and out of the woods, right? Like
Mhm.
what, just the metaphorical ideas about what it means to be in the woods and out of the woods, right? That's also something I think that's at play in that episode that I love so much.
Yeah, that quality, that mental state, kind of the doghouse, that's one that seemed to hit really well in relation to our course. These are just some of the themes that have played out, and as illustrated by some of the student work. In Adrian's piece here, there were a number of analog devices kind of situated strategically, and we were led on a walk and kind of encountered these moments of sound, and it also produced some pretty incredible photographs. And we've been trying to kind of, this kind of delicate dance of trying not to be disruptive, within the woods, trying to add, and the challenges. I think what is a gesture of respect? What is a gesture that very much honors the natural landscape, and also, how can we be kind of strategic or savvy about what we place within it, even if it's limited to our bodies. So that's been an interesting challenge with some of the more site-specific work.
Can I'm gonna just ask an interjecting question while you're on this slide. Like working through this project, and especially when you cite some of the class conversations outside of the classroom and the students' work is starting to find its way into the woods, has this project started to change the way you think about sight in your own non-teaching practices?
Well, that's a really good question, Shannon. I don't know if it has yet for me, but
Yeah,
I'm sure that it's something that's cooking
right.
subconscious. You know what I mean? Like it takes me a long time sometimes to get to a very obvious, right, connection. You know what I mean? But I definitely think that it's making me think much more about landscape as material. It's making me think much more about, especially with the handmade paper practice. You know what I mean? I think that I've seen some really exciting things happen just from the participants in the course. You have to really embrace that, right? And just thinking about the ways that the woods can be incorporated in that. But I'm not sure yet if I can articulate a direct
Yeah.
way that it's influenced my practice. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's in the soup, but
Yeah,
maybe
exactly. Exactly. It's in the soup.
it's on
Totally.
the stove.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you, Ayanah?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I have had an experience of making work in a residency context. And I think that was kind of lingering in my mind as we initially started joking about Black in the Woods. Because I kind of directly made a piece while working that spoke to me thinking through Blackness with respect to representation, but also the darkness of these rural residency settings and the kind of politics of that darkness, and so I had made a piece. I was invited to go to Acre to do studio visits, and I wound up making a piece. And so I think that might have also informed how we're thinking about what can happen in this kind of sighted way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Does that still feel fertile to you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's and that, yeah, and that kind of that energy and that kind of enthusiasm has only continued to kind of build.
Right.
But that's the only piece that I've directly made. Although I was joking with Krista that we should probably do something else that's kind of cited in a particular way.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Well, we do still have, some woods available. We just
Yes.
hit me up,
Yes.
we'll work it out. Sorry, I
Yeah.
continue.
No. Yeah, these are just some other examples of student work. Yeah, so soundscape is one of our themes. Students have begun to explore that. Blackness as identity here, notions of like self-portraiture, and then humor, I think, as well. I believe Zari had was just using type because there's that really awesome press in the shop, and was just kind of using type almost like a stamp to make a few of these pieces as kind of altars or memorials, kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah, just and then other ways to kind of figure out what play with the material to kind of embrace this kind of materiality. What happens when you're not introducing anything new or when you're trying to be kind of limited in what you might introduce.
Yeah, that paper is wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a treasure right there.
Yeah, what's
And
the
do it.
what all is in that paper?
I think the paper itself was just recycled paper, recycled matter. And I think that the top layer was what, Ayanah? It was
Cecilia had kind of sifted. There was this kind of plant material on the skimming on the top of the lake there.
yeah.
And so she just kind of sifted a little bit of it off the water.
Yes.
And
Yeah,
very delicately placed it, very delicately kind of planted it,
Yeah.
around on top of the sheet when the sheet was wet,
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because the milfoil is something, we treat the lagoon for once a year. So
I love it.
available then.
Yes.
Yeah, that being positioned in the print shop allows us to kind of just introduce some little techniques, and then the students can kind of run with that or do their own thing. It's not really top down in that way, but it often is something that they get into. I think the paper making is always a fun thing for them to explore, and even at a modest scale, I think they get really excited about that as a process, kind of right away, the directness of it, and in some ways kind of just like that group participation, making together in the shop.
Yeah, and even the paper, right? Even the paper pulping is typically paper directly from the site, right? It's like recycled paper that people are tossing out. You know what I mean? So even that's really very much site specific, from the top down, the construction of the pulping,
Oh, that's so interesting, Krista. Realizing that one could say that about paper making in general, that it can't, like you're not going to pulp, you're not going to order paper to pulp. You're going to pulp,
right.
for the most part, things that are kind of ready at hand. Like it's a somewhat,
Yeah.
it is a site, for the most part is a site specific practice, whether that site is your home or your landscape or your refuse bin or whatever it is. But I've not thought of that before. That's a fascinating, I like that as like a fascinating thing to chew on for a bit, like just straight up paper making as this like very cited way of like a conglomeration of space or something into one sheet.
Yeah.
Okay.
The geography, right? The geography of the space actually informs, the construction of the sheet. from the top down. You know what I mean? I mean,
Yeah.
but I think that we had at one point, we did order Pope one year.
Yeah.
And then because I'm, you know, like Mr. Magoo, blind and also, you know, a little confused about everything, I'm like, oh, wait, we're making paper? We don't have any pulp. You know, and then out of necessity, right, I kind of stumbled on the right way to go about the thing in the first place. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So it causes you, it forces you to be ingenuous. You know what I mean? To do it, to really practice thinking on the fly.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in this category, again, it's just allowed for students to think about, you know, their relationship to objects. They're thinking about form in a very particular way. The image on the left, Aubrey, is actually making a cast of the site that that rock has been pulled from, and
Great.
then that rock is placed back. So that this is kind of this form of mimicry, or kind of you know, the contour of the landscape, and then kind of replacing it.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
Yeah, these are some other exercises. Krista also introduces these sun prints, this kind of version of cyanotype, to the group. And there's also some silk screening that's introduced. And then I think after those initial kind of exercises, then we hit them with the kind of critical, you know, okay, so what does it mean to just mimic nature or copy nature? Like what are the ways you might complicate that? So it's fun to kind of embrace this like hands-on, really quick kind of outcome, and then, you know, what does it mean for us to kind of complicate that, and for them to be even more ambitious in how they think about their relationship to nature. This is another kind of in and out of the woods, and these themes are pretty loose. I think these are pieces that can fit in multiple categories, and this is our way of kind of organizing this and kind of introducing this this lens for the audience. But there are works in which, you know, sometimes ideas of loss and death and memorial kind of emerge. And Anders did this really quite lovely piece, this kind of durational work in
So
which these monoprints have been installed, almost in kind of memorial or conversation, and really thinking through loss and kind of grief, and found this incredible spot in the old inn to do this piece, and then the audience was able to kind of come by the doorway and to witness Anders in this position. So really tender performance. And Anders is here. Shout outs.
shout out to Anders.
Hi.
Some of these monoprints, some of them are cyanotype, or that are showing this kiss, and others in Anders' hand. But really lovely piece here. Yeah, we've also talked through collage. That's a part of our both of our practices, and this was kind of a variation on a collage, which you know, after constructing the plate, the view was this plate was just fine as it was. But as I recall, Antara was exploring some imagery of childhood, like figures like Mickey Mouse and Tweety Bird or something like that, and then kind of transforming them, which wound up being kind of menacing, some of them.
Yeah. Some of them borderline on the grotesque and horrific, you know, really interesting, really beautiful.
But again, kind of here using soil and you know, plant life and some inks to generate these works on paper. We had the great fortune of kind of exploring this, you know, the origins was at Oxbow, and then we also taught the class at SAIC, which is a really neat thing that can happen sometimes. Is you kind of, Oxbow is a space of experimentation and kind of workshopping, and then we were able to get support from SAIC, of which we both teach, to co-teach the course over a semester. So this is within the kind of green space in the center of the Columbus Drive building. And yeah, another kind of ritualistic, like Anders, kind of ritualistic performance that we kind of were able to witness, this kind of sitting and kind of being within the site, and then kind of emerging from the site, and got some pretty cool photographs out of it.
Oh, I just realized there is a person in the.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
So on the left, yeah, just looking upon the NASA who's immersed in this site. Actually spent a lot of time kind of cleaning up this site and kind of getting the soil ready for this kind of project. So this was like tending this site for a number of days in order to do this project. And within horror and the grotesque, we've enjoyed using this example, which is again has felt like a nice challenge for our students, to think about kind of the kind of spectacle of Black Death, to think about these like the kind of hyper distribution of images of you know, Black people being harmed, and to reimagine how we might point our lens. And I think this Carrie James Marshall Heirlooms and Accessories is a really great example of that. You know, it's a lynching scene, but instead of focusing on, you know, the people who are lost, there's a kind of shift in relief to the crowd, and thinking about this notion of accessory to murder, or what you might pass down in terms of tradition and heirloom. And so these lockets then frame the women who are in this scene. And so again, I think that's where having these examples, they do a lot of teaching as well in the way that we kind of craft these conversations. We also just turn up though. And yeah, try to make the experience in the shop a lot of fun, and I think that fun is super important.
Turn up.
Yeah, cutting up, and it's also the thing you can do when you like really care about the person that you're working with. You know. There's a lot of ugliness out here in the world. So when you can make in this way that feels celebratory, you know, it can make even difficult material. You know, it just has a different kind of emotional tenor, right? How you can deliver it, how you can get students excited about the material.
Did the two of you collaborate prior to teaching together the first time, or was that the first time you'd really been collaborators? Was in the classroom?
Well, we've collaborated before.
You collaborated before
before the classroom. Isn't that right, Ayanah?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think what's really special is that we actually met through our artwork. We acknowledged that our artwork kind of brought us together, and then we became friends. We were in the exhibition together. And then we had some moments of like visiting one another's studios that turned into a little making. And then I curated a show once, and Krista was featured in that as well. So we've had these other moments of kind of collaborative work.
I think I think what you just said about the kind of tenderness that happens when you are working with somebody that you really care about is I think that's a pretty important thing to get to witness as a young artist or somebody at the beginning of your artistic journey, to really see artists working. They don't, even if the collaboration isn't like we're producing an artwork literally together, although I argue that this class is an artwork, but to see that, friendship, yes, but I think to really see that kind of intellectual tenderness that happens between people, and as like an example of imagining an art world that isn't about sort of singular authorship and kind of striving, for some distinct genius that's all your own, but I think having those early experiences of people just finding joy in their thought together is, and a really, I think, important and kind of impactful thing to experience.
Mm-hmm.
I totally agree with you, Shannon. It's not something that I think I thought about initially, but I think that it is something that's come up, from different people who participated in the course, just that they had never experienced that in the classroom before, which to me it's, it's telling, right, about how we move through the world in terms of being educators of art, and how we can just improve the design, constantly be about improving the design. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm sorry that as a student I never got to see that firsthand, because it is weird when you think about how that sort of idea of singular genius is replicated in the classroom, when it's just, it's such an impossible like supposed goal for artists to be kind of expecting, I think. I think survival in the arts is so much about the kind of deep connections that we make to one another over our ideas and our process and our passions and our tragedies as well, and it's, I wish I could see more of that, I think just in general, in those early years of learning what it means to be an artist.
Yes, indeed.
I would also say that it's also come up a few times, and I did think about it in terms of my own education. I never had a Black studio professor until graduate school, and so yeah, they get two for the price of yeah. Yes, just some other little fun things. There was the 3-week intensive, Shannon, that you could probably talk a bit about, but that created some nice overlaps this time around, where we were able to visit a course in the glass area, and began kind of an exchange, and trying to think about where we could materialize some of the themes of our course in different materials and different contexts. And so, with the nudging of the intersection between the different courses, that generated this exchange where we gifted the glass course material that they could then use as a part of, which was a part of their process, making this pad that helps them shape the glass. So we gave them some newsprint from the print shop, and then they used it in their process and gave it back to us. And so that became a part of the materials that we kind of gathered, our archive.
And are you keeping this archive tucked away somewhere?
Yeah, I would say it's different every time, right, Krista?
Yes, it's definitely different every time. And, but I do think that there are some standbys, I think that it continues to evolve, but there's definitely, some centerpieces, that continue to go with us.
because of COVID this time around, we usually have students bring these books, and so those things get kind of shared and passed around. And so we're trying to be, conscious in terms of our health and safety. So I think things are maybe a little bit thinner this time. But then there are just cute little things that pop up, like Mia, another student in the course, had this cast little sculpture, which then wound up, becoming this cute little installation between these objects, with one of the cyanotypes that she made and the piece from the glass class. And so it's just nice when those things kind of organically happen as well. So we always have good documentation of it if we don't have the physical objects all the time. Yeah, some other greatest hits from this semester. Alex, who's also in the audience, shout outs. During our visit to the glass, there was like a presentation of like what can happen in glass led by their students, right? And so it was a really fun way to use a different set of tools and
mix it up.
Yeah.
Mix it up a little bit.
To see that class, to see those students kind of in applying what they had learned to guide us safely through making these kind of impressions with hot glass. And these are just some other experiments. Alyssa had kind of turned the front of the print shop into her own kind of laboratory, and playing around with pigments and colors.
And making pigments from the land, right? Sourcing pigment from the land.
Other really great ways that folks, really are inspired by the little paper making workshop that Krista pulls off every time, gets people hype about paper making. And these are just a couple of shots from the critique / exhibition, because we like to do it big. We like to challenge the students to do it big. So we don't just have a critique, we have an exhibition. Just super proud of our ability to kind of raise the stakes, I think, in terms of like the final outcome, even in a class that's 1 week long. So from Alex making these special little supports for the paper that was made and then printed on, to Mia kind of creating these paper sculptures and projecting onto them. Just really ambitious production in such a short time. You want to say anything about this one, Krista?
No, I think Alex could say something about it if Alex wants to say something.
Yes.
He's still in the room,
Yes, Alex.
Is Alex still in the room?
Oh, I'm here. Hi.
Hi.
How are you all? I still have your copies. I need to send them to you with some other things.
Yay. Hi, thanks for coming.
Thanks so much. I can speak a little bit about this. So we were kind of tasked through, I forgot the name of this, Krista. We did this project or this exercise where one of our colleagues in the class would flip through one of the books that was brought either on Blackness or on the Woods. And we would tell them where to stop on a page, and then they would move their finger on the page and we would tell them where to stop. And whatever line that was, their finger stopped on, we would write it down. So when I did this with one of my colleagues, I think it was Cecilia Kim, I got the line, "What if you're the destruction coursing beneath," from Claudia Rankine's Just Us. And so we were given this other prompt to sort of make a piece based off of that. So I kind of made these pieces of paper that I then screen printed on. kind of these different horizon lines that had different phrases of when you are you, when I am you, when we are you. And we also were supposed to write this little label for it. And I had just graduated from a graphic design background where we had to make basically takeaways. And so I was really interested in turning my label into a takeaway, something that people could read kind of alone or go back to, and thinking of it as its own object. So I wrote this this statement that was talking about this theory in design where it's its own problem and its own solution, and what that means to think of humans as the great designer as opposed to nature. So yeah, it's all in the statement. And it went with it, and it was a little takeaway, and Krista and Ayanah didn't get them, and I still need to mail it to them.
Yes, please.
At your leisure. Yeah, thank you so much for framing your own project.
No problem.
Word.
You're archived, Alex. You're part of the Oxbow archive now.
Without a doubt.
I gave one to Bobby though. I left one for Bobby and another statement so he could kind of try to recreate the bathroom.
Love it. I love it.
Yes. Krista, this is your slide.
Yeah. So this kind of shows a previous, my thesis basically is my master's thesis, a previous project that I did a long time ago, 2013, Narratives of Naima Brown, and it involves paper making and a lot of materials that are organic. You know, I was really thinking a lot about combining the organic world, the natural world, with the synthetic world with this project. So, and dealing also with the speculative and with myth making, dealing primarily with the idea of discarded hair in the streets and then creating a whole speculative story around that hair, the residue of the body. That's all I'll say about it.
Sounds great to me. What about this one?
Yes, a poem that I wrote. Actually, I wrote it. Part of it is about Oxbow and being at Oxbow, and then part of it is about being in Martinique. So you know, it's really me kind of dealing with coming out of the woods, coming back into the urban environment, but also the concept of the woods as a metaphorical space. You know, when you're not well, kind of mentally. So it kind of grapples with a lot of things in terms of being in and out of the woods, both literally and figuratively, and me playing with a lot of the things that had happened inside of these geographical spaces of both Martinique as well as Oxbow. So that's basically what that is. And the piece next to it is a collage that I made years ago. It's part of a series called We Wear the Mask. And it's all on handmade paper that I've made.
I didn't mean to go away from that so fast. I was going to say
I was done. I was finished.
Krista Franklin banger, that collage right there.
Thank you. I was finished.
Shannon, this is the piece I was talking about earlier at Acre.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. While I was there as doing studio visits with artists in residence, kind of made this quick piece that both utilized some raggedy silkscreen that was pretty damaged, of which I printed out this text that said "Thanks for the race," and then proceeded to invite residents to a sprint. And it just wound up being a really fun, kind of playful way to talk about representation and competition within the art world, and thinking about the invitation, you know, and kind of how that spoke to the demographic, and just being kind of playful in this kind of critique of the situation in a way.
Right.
So that's that piece. And then kind of in along the lines of the mix that we put together on Spotify, a recent project at the DePaul Art Museum primarily for folks on the train to experience variations on this text, this Blackness is Just for You. And then invited Damon Locks, the great Damon Locks, to generate a playlist to kind of extend some of the themes from that exhibition in a kind of takeaway form. So, and then more of our little research around the course in that shot there.
So I feel this I feel this pressure now because I want to make sure if there's a question out there to be asked, people have a chance to ask it. But I just want to say before those questions are asked, where are you both now in your practices? What's fresh and exciting that's on the horizon? It's just about you. Or if the answer
fresh and expansive on the horizon right now. I have a couple of projects that are coming out towards the end of the year.
Okay.
That I have, had the great pleasure of being involved in. One is the Octavia E. Butler tarot deck, and that's really exciting. That's super exciting. That was great. It was a big project, working with a lot of different people, a lot of hands in it. It should be released in the fall. Completely, but it's a lot of really brilliant minds who are involved in that process. So that's coming out. But I'm always a slow mover, with the practice. I don't really have too many plans right now. I kind of like to let things evolve and creep up and emerge very organically. So nothing quite focused on the horizon, but just continuing to work.
You just had a book come out.
I did. It's always a shock because I never talk about my projects. So it's always like, oh, you have a book out? Yeah.
A book out. You can give that some, Haymarket book.
Exactly.
So people should pick that up.
Please do. Too much midnight.
What about you, Ayanah?
Well, I have a solo show, one that's been pushed back multiple times because of the pandemic. It'll be at the Cleve Carney Museum of Art now. Now it's called, in February of next year.
Okay.
So yeah, that's kind of the major thing that I have coming up.
And which museum is now called the Cleve Carney Museum of Art? I don't think I know.
Yeah, so at the College of DuPage, they've had a pretty active exhibition program, which used to be called the Cleve Carney Gallery, which is now a museum. So just outside of Chicago.
Okay, so we're putting that in our date books for February 2022. Is that what we're doing?
That is correct. It's one of those things, like many of us, that had things rescheduled, postponed, delayed because of the challenges of the pandemic. So I'm trying to keep it in my mind. It's been pushed a number of times, but yes, it's going to happen in February. Fingers crossed.
Well, it wasn't as fully cooked as an exhibition, but for those tuned in and those will watch this later, one of the big special projects that Oxbow has on the horizon is to start doing some publishing with artists we work with. So this was, in a sense, this talk was like a bit of a teaser about how we are hopeful and are actively starting to raise money towards that project. Our first one will be a book with Ayanah and Krista about Black in the Woods. We don't know we don't know all the wonderful things that can be yet, but
so exciting, Shannon.
I am very excited about it. I think I think books as artworks are really always an exciting thing to get to produce, but I can't think of a more kind of fantastic and appropriate couple of artists to do that with than the two of you, given both of your practices with print and with text and with paper and with, you know, I mean, with the archive, I mean, with research, it's just, it feels like it's gonna, you know, it's gonna be all the right, push all the right buttons, you know?
Hey, friend.
We're excited by the prospect of this. I think we have a lot of good stuff that we love to archive in that way. So
Yeah, it's, I imagine like a lot of like very juicy material things about it too, you know, like
yeah,
what can be slipped in between the pages? What kind of cover can it, what kind of box can it be? And what kind of other objects can go with it? I'm just like,
well, I like all those.
what kind of
I love
soundtrack?
it all.
It's, you know, like,
Let's go.
are there headphones in the box with the cassette tape that's got that, you know? Anyways, I am thrilled that you spent time with us tonight on this beautiful summer eve. I want to give a chance to anybody who came to ask a question, and thank you all for being here, and hopefully,
Yes, thank you all for coming.
Little parting shot there for the audience and for folks who might want to promote. Huh?
Questions in the chat.
We got a couple in the chat. We got one from Anders and one from Alex.
Shall I stop screen sharing?
Yeah.
You can see your beautiful faces.
Yeah, let's see who's in the room still.
Okay.
Let's do it.
So Anders asks, just want to say Black in the Woods continues to be one of the richest and most inspiring things I've ever done as an artist and a teacher and a student. Would love to know if you'll continue teaching it.
Krista will have me.
Yes, we are teaching this course.
This is the only course I think.
Okay.
This is the only course I want to teach.
I'm gonna try to wrangle away from me, but she cannot. Done. Yeah, we'll definitely be teaching this for a long time to come, I think. And I think, you know, there'll be other iterations, I think, of it too, that will extend beyond just the course. So, you know, including publication, you know, that we're talking about, and some other things, other permutations as well. So for sure, we'll continue teaching it.
It will live on.
And it was a joy to have Anders in that class. Thank you so much, Anders, for being there.
Yes, indeed. Shout out to Anders.
And Alex says, after teaching your most recent iteration of Black in the Woods, which they participated in, are there any changes you're thinking of making to the class if you teach it again?
Ooh.
Love it.
I think so. I think it will ever evolve. You know what I mean? It's one of those projects that's not stagnant. You know, and it also, I think, as people continue to make work and as work continues to surface for us too, that's already in the world. I definitely think that yeah, we'll continue to expand it, you know, into different kinds of permutations.
It's a living thing.
It is. It is. I don't think that we have any focus changes on it quite yet, you know, but I think of course it will evolve and shift over time, you know, because it's like what works, what doesn't work, what's effective, what's not effective, you know, how much time are we working with? I mean, we had to change a great deal this time around just because we were working with a short span of time, and, you know, just different factors were involved. So we had to change things on the fly even, you know, this go around. So it's always a different permutation, always.
Yeah, I think the shop, the print shop, the paper making and the print, those are kind of one way in which we've situated this material. But we also can imagine, you know, folks bringing a box of whatever it is that they use, and then we guide their making through that, as opposed to, you know, teaching these specific some of the techniques that we have. So yeah, I think it will continue to evolve, and really be informed by the kind of students that we attract.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you both very much. I know everybody else who's left with us right now does too.
Thank you so much for inviting us, Shannon.
Yeah, it was really, I could talk to you for another 30 minutes
I know. You go on and on. I
about
know.
your own practices as well. I mean, we
Yeah.
really talked about your class, but I think it was a really rich conversation. Everyone who's here, you know, we do archive these things, we put them online. So if you know folks who would like to hear Krista and Ayanah talk about their work, forward that link. It'll be edited and up on the website probably by mid next week. We'll send you both a link, and I hope I get to see you soon in the flesh.
Same here. Y'all have a great night. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks everybody for being here tonight. Appreciate
Yeah.
it. Shout out to all our students.
Shout out. Bye, loves.
Bye, y'all. Cheers.
Bye, cheers.
Peace.